She achieved her greatest success in the late 70s and 80s through roles as stylish and glamorous women in film and television. Photo 1976. Enchanting photo shoot of Gaynor Goodman in a beautiful outfit. K. Fancher, February 23, 1952. The latest episode of Minnesota Kodachrome's co-stars Hubert's record collection, which includes the classics Accordiana and Larry Adler, Harmonica Virtuoso. Pittsburgh circa 1912. Pennsylvania Avenue and Joseph Horn's store. Detroit, Michigan, circa 1905. Cincinnati, Hamilton and Dayton Railroad Office, Woodward Jefferson Avies. Washington, D.C. No caption, Girl with Doll, 1926 or 1927. Probably warning her about that McCarthy boy. July 1911. Street scene, 2nd Avenue, Asbury Park. Greetings from this pleasant setting for the ice wagon, streetcar, sandwich shop and resort hotels. October 1939. 5 Idaho farmers, members of Ola Self-Help Sawmill Co-op, in the woods standing against a load of logs ready to go down to their mill about 3 miles away. Gem County, Idaho. December 1942. Checking electrical wiring assemblies for B-17F, Flying Fortress, bombers at the Boeing plant in Seattle. Merchants Transfer Storage Company, Washington, D.C. In 1911, moving a boiler on D Street within sight of the Capitol with a 12-horse team. Bonus, many old billboards. Amy Frandl, March 2, 1952. The latest episode of Minnesota Kodachromes takes place at the kitchen table. The cake looks delicious, but we'll start with a slice of that cherry pie, please. (1944) Actress Lauren Bacall, 3/4 portrait, in houndstooth check jacket. Circa 1910. Ford J. Mrs. Group. An outlier among Harris Ewing's generally sedate and sober studio portraits. Ford J. Mrs. Group. Sequel to the whimsical Harris Ewing portrait. February 1943. This image in a jacket marked Killed. from photos taken in and around Albuquerque, New Mexico. Washington, D.C., circa 1915. Purchased David E. a youngster and his mate at the Harris Ewing Portrait Studio, not long before his life seems to have been cut tragically short in a traffic accident. February 28, 1952. Maureen, whose husband, Leslie, Washington, D.C., circa 1915. Miss Elizabeth Clem, daughter of Major General John L. Clem, famed in Grand Army circles as the drummer boy of Chickamauga. January 1937. Deerfield, Florida. Migrant agricultural worker from Oklahoma. (1910) Forsyth Street looking east. Our 20th large format, high-resolution view of Jacksonville, Florida. Washington, D.C., ca. 1913. Hollow Horn Bear. May 4, 1952. Dam at Blue Earth Below Cemetery. The latest installment of Minnesota Kodachromes might be titled Tadpole and the Big Dippers. November 17, 1953. FR Machine Works, 44-14 Astoria Boulevard, Long Island City, New York. General view from balcony. C.M. Johnson, client. June 1942. United States Office of Defense Transportation System of Port Control and its Traffic Channel Control. Washington, D.C. April 1930. Washington, D.C. Rush hour, 15th Street and New York Avenue at Treasury. Hubert at Claude's Farm, April 27, 1952. Hubert Tuttle and his Dalmatian, Sally, star in this latest episode of Minnesota Kodachromes. Washington, D.C., circa 1912. Employees at printing presses, Bureau of Engraving and Printing. Washington, D.C. Safest driver of 1936, John W. Hunter. English glamorous model and movie actress Pamela Green, 1951. Panama Canal excavation, 1913. The world's most celebrated shortcut marks its centennial this month. Washington, D.C., circa 1940. Caffritz, Morris, Mrs., a leader in both parties and philanthropy. Gwendolyn Caffritz was the Hungarian-born wife of real estate developer Morris Caffritz. April 1939. Salvation Army, San Francisco, California. At Minna Street, the Army forms a semicircle. Girls' Sunday school class sings between preaching to attract a crowd. Elwyn asleep, April 11, 1952. This outtake from Minnesota Kodachromes was evidently deemed worth saving despite the photographer's being at the end of his roll. Circa 1903. Unloading bananas at New Orleans. Final installment of a thrilling trilogy we've watched unfold here over the past 3 years. July 1939. Siler City, North Carolina. Resting place of Aunt B. Circa 1910. Hotel Halcyon and Avenue B looking north, Miami, Florida. January 20th, 1921. Washington, D.C. American Forestry Association Birdhouse Contest. Grace Sally, September 18, 1951. Minnesota Kodachromes at home in Blue Earth. Washington, D.C., 1920s. Gaynor, John F., Mrs., who looks like someone you would want to have at your party. July 1939. Applique embroideries for sale on street in front of 10-cent store. Saturday afternoon. Siler City, North Carolina. (1904). Produce Exchange, New York, New York. George Post Commodity Exchange on Broadway, completed in 1884. July 1939. The main street, Chatham Avenue, of Siler City, North Carolina. April 1943. Baltimore, Maryland. Crowded bus carrying people to work at 8 a.m. Washington, D.C., circa 1920. Iden V. Gilmore, Mrs. We sense a charity play in the offing, and vaguely recall having plans every night that month. Picnic at Austin Vern, Ruth, Ida Pete, September 7, 1952. Philadelphia circa 1907. Broad Street north from Locust with view of City Hall. Post and Montgomery Streets, corner of Market. Another view of San Francisco after the devastating earthquake and fire of April 1906. Washington, D.C., circa 1920. Schwartzball, see Mrs. Who'll be the first to write on her wall. Dennis Hahn Dance Company founder Ruth Street Dennis and husband Ted Shawn with garden party guests, bridesmaids, caterers, Vestal Virgins, among them the modern dance pioneers Louise Brooks and Martha Graham. Bonus photo for you, a beautiful retro woman. Sybil Dunning, Austrian actress, 1968 photo shoot. Sybil Dunning is an Austrian actress, film director, screenwriter, and film producer. Enchanting photo shoot 1969. Washington, D.C., 1919. Franklin Motor Car Company police van. June 1929. Young boy with bucket and pole on the Potomac. We hope you have a license to operate that thing. Detroit, Michigan, circa 1905. Cincinnati, Hamilton and Dayton Railroad Office, Woodward Jefferson Avies. Card game at Floyd's, February 11, 1952. Going clockwise from lower left, Daddy, Ivan, Grace, Ratch and Floyd playing Rummy Royal. May 1943. Keysville, Virginia. Randolph Henry High School. Kitchen of cafeteria. Lunches cost about 15 cents. Students don't have much money and they bring produce from farms and receive tickets. January 1922. 3 REO speed wagons delivered by True Motor Company to the DC Police Department for patrols. New York in 1909. Metropolitan Life Insurance Building in Madison Square. Demonstration at the Red Cross Emergency Ambulance Station in Washington, D.C., during the influenza pandemic of 1918. September 7, 1952. Picnic at Austin. Ivan, Dowdy, Loren, Grace. June 1924. Washington, D.C. Largest and most powerful electric locomotive in the world being exhibited by the Chicago, Milwaukee St. Paul Railway and the General Electric Company. May 1942. Parris Island, South Carolina. Marine Corps Glider Detachment Training Camp. A glider winch. Hubert Sally, August 1952. In the latest episode of Minnesota Kodachromes, the DeSoto and Dalmatian we saw with Grace are back for an encore. June 1924. Washington, D.C. Largest and most powerful electric locomotive in the world being exhibited by the Chicago, Milwaukee St. Paul Railway and the General Electric Company. April 1956. Shirtless teenage boy dancing in the audience at a performance by Bill Haley and the Comets and Laverne Baker at the Sports Arena, Hershey, Pennsylvania. October 1939. Display of magazines for sale in Taylor, Texas. We'll take one of each, please. April 1956. Performance by Bill Haley and the Comets and Laverne Baker at the Sports Arena in Hershey, Pennsylvania. Washington, D.C., 1924. Rock Creek Park Scenes. Girls on Bridge. L.R., Catherine Wren, Norville Munford, Mary Happer, Cecil Lester Jones, Jesse Adkins, Doris Wagner, Virginia Selden, Mildred Crosby and Mary Selden. Leslie, February 28, 1952. Visiting the abode of Grace and Hubert, whose low-key decor whispers of subdued scarlets and tentative teals. July 13, 1952. Maureen, Grace, Helen, Albert, Leslie and Morris at St. Mary's, Rochester. July 1940. Migratory agricultural worker from Florida waiting to leave Belcross, NC, to another job at Omley, Virginia. It is Sunday, and she is wearing her best clothes. March 1943. Walter V. Dew, rear brakeman on the Atchison, Topeka Santa Fe between Chicago and Chillicothe, Illinois, watching the train from the cupola. April 2nd, 1909. Playground at Hamilton Fish Park. New York, New York, it's a toddler town. Howard Rena, April 1952. Visiting Claude's farm somewhere in Minnesota, affording us our third look at these colorful Kodachromes. Washington, D.C. No caption is the caption on this Harris Ewing glass negative from 1935 of a lady and her furry friend. Chicago circa 1910. Madison Street, Hotel Brevoort La Salle Opera House. Grace at Claude's farm, April 27, 1952. Along with Sally the Dalmatian, in our second slide from the Minnesota Kodachromes we got on eBay. The beautiful Raquel Welch is an American actress and sex symbol of the 1970s. December 17, 1943. Hoffman La Roche Incorporated, Nutley, New Jersey. Building 34, 3 Kettles. Fodler Company, client. (1909). Majestic building from Detroit Opera House. With serve self lunch and basement. Washington, D.C., 1920. Mary Claffett, Irene Ella Scherer, Mary Fassenayer. December 1942. Chicago, Illinois. Working on a giant locomotive, one of the 400s, in the Chicago Northwestern Railroad shops. Butch Sally. February 13, 1952. Introducing a new series of Kodachromes, that beautiful historical, found on eBay, taken by a family somewhere in Minnesota. Toledo, Ohio, circa 1909. Madison Avenue. Fast forward a few years from our previous view of downtown Toledo, and we now have automobiles and a new booty. Toledo, Ohio, circa 1905. Madison Avenue from Summit Street. Featuring the hotel booty and a number of painless dentists, as well as a nice display of wallpaper and decorative materials. December 17, 1943. Hoffman La Roche Incorporated, Nutley, New Jersey. Building 28. Fodler Company, client. Summer 1927. New York City views Long Beach. Raw material for a Glias Williams or Roz Chast. (1935) Row houses in Washington, D.C., running the vertical gamut from natty to gritty. Chinatown, San Francisco, August 1957. Taken on the same visit as the drive down the Vertigo location. Circa 1905. Front piazza of Kittatinny House, Delaware Water Gap, Pennsylvania. January 1942. Elm Street Theater Row in Dallas. Circa 1905. Street View, Delaware, Water Gap, Pennsylvania. May 1943. New York. Emptying garbage and trash from Harlem apartment houses. Circa 1900. Pabst Brewery, Milwaukee. Avenue of the Beer Wagons. April 1937. Negro houses in Mobile, Alabama. Our third dispatch today from Arthur Rothstein's trip south for the Resettlement Administration. July 1942. East Montpelier, Vermont. Conrad Ormsby with automatic electric milkers. His father agreed to increase his Jersey herd from 25 to 30 milkers to aid in the Food for Freedom program. Washington, D.C., 1935. Senator Huey P. Long. New York circa 1907. Marble Collegiate Church, 5th Avenue. Surrounded by a host of ectoplasmic pedestrians. Bonus photo for you, a beautiful retro woman. Carmen Russo is a famous Italian actress. Photo 1978. Actress Heather Thomas. Charming sauna photo shoot, 1977. August 1943. Southfields, New York. Interracial activities at Camp Nathan Hale, where children are aided by the Methodist Camp Service. Singing around the campfire. Circa 1907. The Shoreham, Cape May, New Jersey. Pretty Jane Mansfield, 1960s vintage photo shoot. March 1920. Republic motor truck at Letterman Hospital, San Francisco, with cargo of oranges. Washington, D.C., 1922. And no caption, Women on Street. One in a series showing spring fashions at Easter. This trio is going places with a camera and a banjo. September 1941. Dude at rodeo in Ashland, Montana. September 6, 1924. Washington, D.C. 80 pounds, 60-yard dash, Central High School. (1904) Boys High School, Philadelphia. Our titillating title comes from the star burlesquer's billboard far right. San Francisco circa 1924. New Rio 6, Pacific Heights. June 1937. Sharecropper boy near Chesney, South Carolina. San Francisco, 1925. California State Automobile Association Gus Petzel baby car at start of cross-country run. August 1942. Women in industry. Aircraft motor workers. $1 million baby, not in terms of money but in her value to Uncle Sam, 21-year-old Eunice Hancock. Circa 1910. Surf bathers at beach, possibly Atlantic City. Washington, D.C., 1931. Woman with donkey in taxicab. For anyone who's ever been instructed to get your __ over here right now, here's one possible solution. San Francisco circa 1930. Hudson 8 sedan. Mount Spare, Shiny stockings optional at extra cost. Washington, D.C., 1938. Marie Pasapi C. Koi Hansaker is all it says here. Are there enough clues to tell us what's going on? San Francisco, 1919. Colorado. Climb in, if you can figure out how. New York circa 1910. Broad Street and the Curb Brokers. (1906). Post Office, Worcester, Massachusetts. The highlight here, for retro photos, at least, is the Sandwich Depot next door, and its sign beckoning the passing ghost pedestrians. February 1969. Weight Watchers International founder Jean Nadech at speaking engagement in Louisville, Kentucky. Walkerville, Ontario, circa 1905. General Offices, Hiram Walker Sons. San Francisco, 1929. Piercero convertible coupe in Golden Gate Park. Riverside, now Windsor, Ontario. At Edith Cavell School, 1953. This photo shows a group of kids at the front of the school, with my mother standing behind the card table. I am standing beside the table with my tongue sticking out. Circa 1927. Sweetbriar College, May Day exercises. In 2015, it's May Day in more ways than one at the Women's College near Lynchburg, set to close due to a financial crisis. August 1942. Women in industry. Tool production. A job which was formerly done by hand, and by men, is done in this large Midwest drill and tool plant by women at machines. Republic Drill and Tool Company, Chicago. REO Speedwagon Grocery Truck, San Francisco, 1921. Charmin Eve Eden, photo 1964. (1907), North Church and Congress Streets, Portsmouth, New Hampshire. October 17, 1935. San Francisco. Federal Truck City Ice Delivery Company. Neighbors of the Western Asbestos Magnesia Company. San Francisco, 1937. Down the Oldsmobile on Golden Gate Bridge with police officer, whose cruiser we can see reflected in the bumper. Golden Gate International Exposition, Treasure Island, San Francisco, 1940. Between the towers were two gold bas-reliefs, Dance of Life and Path of Darkness. Circa 1897. The seawall at St. Augustine. Diversions include a museum and menagerie, and hot cold sea sulfur water baths. Banff, Alberta, Canada, sometime in the early 60s. Scanned from a box of Kodachrome slides I found at a flea market. July 1942. East Montpelier, Vermont. Richard, age 5, son of the farmer Charles Ormsby, has his own war project. He has agreed to lick all the savings stamps for the family. (1894). Sport fishing, Palm Beach, Florida. Day's catch. Now where's that frying pan? San Francisco, 1929. Nash convertible coupe at Golden Gate Park. Heading into the Depression in style. April 1939. Salvation Army, San Francisco, California. Unemployed young men pause a moment to loiter and watch, and then pass on. January 1941. Guests of Sarasota, Florida, trailer park enjoying the sun and sea breeze at the beach. My grandfather documented the last day in session for my mother's one-room school in Honey Grove, Pennsylvania, in 1958. New York circa 1900. Mess Boys, Brooklyn Navy Yard Hospital. November 1942. Chicago, Illinois. Washing a locomotive at the coaling station at an Illinois Central rail yard. San Francisco, 1928. Franklin Sport touring at Golden Gate Park. My grandfather took over the old family grocery in Honey Grove, PA, in 1950 and opened his funeral home adjacent. August 25, 1949. New York International Airport, Idlewild. Bridge with plane. A Boeing 377 Stratocruiser, the Pan Am Clipper 7Cs. San Francisco, 1920. Atterbury truck at City Hall. Looking somewhat skeletal if you ask us. July 19, 1939. New York World's Fair, Railroad Exhibit Locomotives. Locomotive of Tomorrow, General View. Washington, D.C., 1933. Front of wrecked automobile. Bonus photo for you, a beautiful retro woman. Gia Marie Karangi in a beautiful pink bikini, 1962. Pop singer, 1987. Stunning Gaynor Goodman, a beautiful 20th century photo shoot. The year, 1935, the place, somewhere in Washington, D.C., the lady with the Ford, unknown, but notable enough to have been in the Harris Ewing archive. (1938) Smith Furnace, Office, Lincoln County, North Carolina. A relic of the charcoal iron industry, with its forges and furnaces, that grew up in the years after the Revolutionary War. Washington, D.C., 1922. Number 12 Engine Company. Note the paper tape reels used for recording location information from Gamewell boxes, the automatic telegraph system used by municipal fire alarms. Washington, D.C., 1922. Number 12 Engine Company. Note the paper tape reels used for recording location information from Gamewell boxes, the automatic telegraph system used by municipal fire alarms. November 1864. Church built by the 50th Engineers at Poplar Grove, near Petersburg, Virginia. November 1864. Church built by the 50th Engineers at Poplar Grove, near Petersburg, Virginia. July 14, 1913. French fete. Bastille Day in New York 101 years ago, where the continental lunch menu included frankfurters, clam chowder, all kinds of sandwiches, and ice-cold milk. December 1942. Chicago, Illinois. Locomotive under repair at the Chicago Northwestern shops. So that's what that little step is for. The Sternwheeler City, St. Joseph on the Mississippi River circa 1910. Unloading cotton on the levee. Memphis, Tennessee. Van Ness Avenue Limit of Fire, San Francisco. Aftermath of the devastating earthquake of April 1906. (1906). Bathing at City Point, South Boston, Massachusetts. Hey kid, put on a shirt. Hotel Brunswick, Boston. The final installment of today's 1906 trilogy. January 1941. Old buildings in New Orleans. Custom buttons and sandwiches of all kind. March 1943. New York, New York. Madison Avenue on a rainy day. July 1942. East Montpelier, Vermont. Marilyn Ormsby, in striped dress, last seen here, is president of her 4-H club, the Montpelier Center Girls, where she learns how to sew and cook economically and well. July 22, 1936. Aerial view of Pan American Airways China Clipper, Martin M130 flying boat, over San Francisco with Coit Memorial Tower at left. July 1942. West Danville, Vermont. Guy Davenport, 11, and Maynard Clark, 14, reading the air raid instructions posted in Gilbert S. Hastings Post Office and General Store. Boston, Massachusetts, circa 1905. North Station, Union Station. Frozen forever at 10:40 a.m. Washington, D.C., circa 1921. Looking up Georgia Avenue at Howard Place. And Jacob Katzen's Grocery, dealer in velvet kind ice cream and whistle. Boston's Tremont Street, circa 1906. Adams House and Keith's Theater. Noted vaudeville venue. Washington, D.C., or vicinity, 1935. Waterman Aeroplane. Waldo Waterman's rotable airplanes had no trouble getting airborne, but they never really took off. Richmond, Virginia, circa 1912. Main Street, west from 11th, featuring that guy. January 1939. Packing cabbages in truck to go to market, from small truck farm of man from North Carolina, near Belle Glade, Florida. November 11, 1922. Washington, D.C. Still, back alley mason jar hooch in the early years of Prohibition. April 4th, 1958. Photographs show actor Raymond Burr filming his television show Perry Mason with co-star Barbara Hale and others. February 1912. Henry, 10-year-old oyster shucker who does 5 pots of oysters a day. Works before school, after school, and Saturdays. Been working 3 years. Maggioni Canning Company, Port Royal, South Carolina. American pin-up model, singer and actress Meg Miles, 1957. Circa 1910. Maple Street, Springfield, Massachusetts, where ivy was evidently quite popular. Circa 1910. Capitol Dome from Central Park, St. Paul, Minnesota. Circa 1910. Post Office and First Street, Duluth, Minnesota. Continuing our visit to the Gopher State. April 1958. James Garner on the set of the television show Maverick. April 21st, 1958. James Garner on the set of the television show Maverick. With co-star Jack Kelly and the Wisconsin Agricultural Ambassador, Alice in Dairyland of 1957, Miss Nancy K. Truen. Circa 1900. Residence near Country Club, Ann Arbor, Michigan. Our house. A very, very, very fine house. News item. A photograph of the fox and its capture in the fox hunt staged in the Capitol grounds Monday, in which more than a score of persons aided the Capitol Police Force to run the brown animal in. November 1942. Chicago, Illinois. Engine taking on coal at an Illinois Central Railroad yard. August 16, 1954. Stanford Con, Housing Authority. Balcony A4. WFR Ballard Architect. 6-shooter optional. November 22, 1905. Lakeshore Drive, Chicago. A nice day for a carriage ride, and look out for that omnibus. Taken by my dad in August 1957. Bay Bridge in the background. I'm sure someone with an intimate knowledge of the city and / or Google Maps will figure out which street this is. January 1939. Small truck farmer from North Carolina. His neck was broken and is in a brace. Near Belle Glade, Florida. January 1937. Children of citrus workers in hallway of apartment house. Winter Haven, Florida. April 1936. Exterior of house at 912 North 8th Street. Milwaukee, Wisconsin. May 1936. home of worker in Strip Coal Mine, Cherokee County, Kansas. Detroit circa 1902. A muskellunge fish. Who wants pike? September 1958. Rosalind Russell in costume from the film Auntie Mame posed with author Patrick Dennis, E. Tanner III. Circa 1900. USS Texas discharging ammunition. The Navy battleship nicknamed Old Voodoo. April 1936. House at 437 North Jackson Street, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. New York circa 1903. The Flatiron Building, where, as we like to say, there are three sides to every story. Bonus photo for you, a beautiful retro woman. Kirsten Imrie is a famous British photo model. She was born on October 26, 1967. Photo 1992. 4. Retro photo shoot of a girl, 1960s. March 1930. Washington, D.C. Junior League members at Children's Hospital. Baby's first word, meh. January 5, 1916. New York. Dickerson, Master, and Sister Dorothy, portrait photograph. San Francisco City Hall circa 1919. Peerless truck. Three young ladies aboard what seems to be some sort of street cleaning, finger-ripping machine. Hide your children and stand clear. Detroit circa 1911. Boulevard View Packard Auto Plant. San Francisco circa 1921. G.W. Thomas drayage Fagel truck with a dynamo in tow. Somewhere around San Francisco in 1920, Grant 6 touring car, pointed straight into the 20th century, although the Grant brand itself was not long for this world, expiring in 1922. April 1943. Traffic jam on the road from the Bethlehem Fairfield shipyard to Baltimore as the second shift of workers leaves the plant. Dam at Blue Earth Below Cemetery May 4, 1952. The latest episode of Minnesota Kodachromes is back with the boys at the swimming hole for a bracing dip. My good friend and former neighbor Jim and his wife Lois in their trailer home in the early 1950s, when he was stationed in Florida as a radio man in the Navy. He loved motorcycles, hot rods, music, cats, exotic birds, and most of all people. Washington, D.C., circa 1931. Longworth, Paulina, with parents. Paulina, 1925 to 1957. Palm Beach, Florida, circa 1901. The breakers from the casino. Note the horse car and boardwalk with cutouts for the palm trees. From San Francisco circa 1948 comes this nighttime shot of a Pontiac showroom, which our learned commenters reveal was at 1560 Van Ness Avenue. San Francisco, 1922. Buick Roadster at California Street Firehouse. If we ride along, can we ring the bell? Washington, D.C., circa 1920. Nation's Business. A look behind the scenes at the offices of that magazine. Athletes from various colleges demonstrating a variety of football moves. Who'll be the first to name that team? Earthquake Panorama. San Francisco after the devastating earthquake and fire of April 18, 1906. San Francisco circa 1915. Studebaker Motor Car and Repair Shop with Garage Mechanic. Don't try this at home. Or at work. September 20th, 1925. Man wearing a mask made by W.T. Benda. Our introduction to the creations of Polish-born artist and costume designer Władysław Teodor Benda, 1873 to 1948. Floyd Rech, February 11, 1952. The latest installment of Minnesota Kodachromes features a cameo by Mr. Boston. Anything else we cannot explain, it just is. May 1943. Washington, D.C. Office of War Information Research Workers. San Francisco circa 1919. Server's truck at Dodd Warehouse. If anyone knows the whereabouts of Nick and his piece of chalk, the foreman would like to see him in the warehouse office. Circa 1903. Herald Square, New York. With Times Square in the distance, and the New York Times building going up at center. Washington, D.C., circa 1929. Paulina Longworth with mother. 1939. Rosemount, Forkland vicinity, Greene County, Alabama. Structure dates to 1832. Designed and built by Allen Glover for his son William. Two-story Greek Revival frame house with columns. Ballroom makes a third story on top. July 1940. Street scene at the Fiesta in Santa Fe, New Mexico. October 8, 1939. 315 7th Avenue, New York City. General view. Barbara Edwards is an American supermodel and model with charm. Photo 1981. Circa 1906. Sponge yard along the docks. Nassau, Bahama Islands. April 1943. Baltimore, Maryland. Street under viaduct. September 1952. Man in an airport control tower looking at radar screen. San Francisco circa 1922. Star Auto ascending steep grade. With a shout out to FS and WL. The San Francisco Bay Area circa 1931. Earth-moving equipment and trucks. Perpendicular Pittsburgh circa 1908. Fifth Avenue from Grant Street. Circa 1919. Streetcar in Washington, D.C. with what seems to be a pedestrian scooper in the up position. September 1943. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Bringing baggage from a bus. Circa 1919. Angler next to Studebaker Big 6 touring car. San Francisco circa 1920. Franklin car ascending steep grade. Bonus points if you can street view this. September 1921. Washington, D.C. Old Dutch Market Bakery. We'll take one of everything, please. The Bay Area circa 1919. Girls fishing next to Studebaker Big Six touring car. Washington, D.C., circa 1923. Traffic World Office. Tobacco-friendly on both the left and the right. Circa 1916. Detroit Athletic Club from the Plaza Hotel. Evidently something of a motorcar magnet. Nadine, April 1952. The newest cast member of Minnesota Kodachromes takes a break against the mandatory multi-floral backdrop. San Francisco, circa 1919. Nash 2-ton tanker truck. Washington, D.C., 1922. Children at water fountain. Make mine a double, and get the little lady a drink. May 1944. New York. A small boy who receives daycare at Greenwich House while his mother works. Washington, D.C., circa 1928. Guarantee Storage Company truck. Washington, D.C., circa 1930. Timmons, Mrs. Bascombe. Bonus photo for you, a beautiful retro woman. Stunning model Corinne Russell, 1982. Beauty Kate Parker, 1966. American personal trainer Kathy Smith, 1974. (1951) Santa Barbara, California. Lana Turner lounging by the pool at the Coral Casino. (1910) Columbia crew at Poughkeepsie Boathouse, members of the Columbia University Varsity 8-oared crew team. May 1944. New York. A small boy arriving at Greenwich House, where he is enrolled in a nursery school program, receives daycare while his mother works. Real estate exchange from Dime Bank Building, an early Detroit skyscraper, known for most of its life as the Cadillac Square Building, around the time it was completed in 1918. Washington, D.C., 1920. Nation's business. Circa 1905. Along the Boulevard River Beach, Massachusetts. (1914). Illustration for McClure's magazine. Disclaimer: no models were harmed in the making of this picture. May 1944. New York. Two working mothers calling for children at Greenwich House, a neighborhood center, where they have left them early in the morning for daycare.